It began inside a luxury hotel, a bathtub, and a silence no one could explain. She was beautiful, bold, unapologetic. Iris Xie, a 31-year-old influencer who lived for attention and died alone. At first, it looked like an accident, but now police say it was murder.
A 31-year-old Taiwanese influencer was found dead in a hotel bathtub in Kuala Lumpur, and at first, it looked like a sudden death, but now authorities say this is a murder investigation. Who was with her? What really happened in those final hours? And how could her controversial online life maybe play a role? We're going to dive into the twists, the clues, the questions that investigators are racing to answer, and we're going to break it all down with a retired FBI agent. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
She was a nurse turned model, a creator turned controversy. Her bold posts made her famous and made enemies too. From Paris to Taipei, Iris knew how to be seen. But fame doesn't protect you when danger follows you offline.
Videos today. There is a mystery unfolding overseas right now that is grabbing headlines across Asia. It's getting a lot of attention here too, and it starts inside of a hotel room in Malaysia. We are talking about a 31-year-old Taiwanese influencer who is known, yes, for very bold and provocative posts, who was found dead in a bathtub. Now, at first, police called this a sudden death. That changed quickly, because now investigators say this is no longer a case of, let's say, natural causes or an accident. This is a murder investigation. Her name is Iris Xie, a nurse turned model who built a massive following online and wasn't afraid to court controversy. But what happened during her final hours in that hotel room, who she was with when she died, this has turned a story about internet fame into something much more sinister. So here's what this case is about. It can be a little complicated, but it is chilling. Iris, whose real name is Shi Yu Sin, was 31 years old and from Taiwan. She made a name for herself online as a social media influencer. And by the way, not just an influencer. She was one who was known for pushing boundaries, okay? She had cultivated a huge online following. We're talking over 547,000 followers on Instagram, tens of thousands more across Facebook and TikTok and X. She actually first came to attention for stunts that went way beyond typical influencer behavior, although now that I think about it, not outside the realm of what influencers do, but let's just say, for example, in 2022, she posed in a sheer lacy bra top in front of the Louvre in Paris, claiming it was her first time seeing the museum, and apparently the local police asked her to leave. In Taiwan, she caused quite a stir for taking off her underwear while sitting on a bed at an IKEA store, using the underwear to pull her hair into a ponytail. But now you fast forward to October of 2025. Iris travels to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, planning to stay from October 20th to October 24th, so just a short trip. She checks into a hotel on Jalan Conlay. It's a street in the heart of the city, and here's a big part. She was reportedly in that hotel with Malaysian rapper Name Wee, whose real name is Wee Meng Chi. Now, Name Wee is known locally and regionally, and he is no stranger to controversy himself. He is known for satirical, boundary-pushing rap music. It touches on taboo topics from religion to censorship to China's political policies. In fact, he was arrested in 2016 for allegedly insulting Islam. 2021, his song Fragile, it mocked Chinese nationalism and addressed politically sensitive issues like Taiwan sovereignty and Uyghur persecution. His music has been both viral and banned, depending upon the region. But now we go back to October 22nd, okay? It's around 1:40 p.m. local time, and things take a dramatic and tragic turn for the worse, because that is when hotel staff found Iris unresponsive in the bathtub. Initially, the authorities classified it, as I mentioned, as a sudden death, but things quickly shifted. Malaysian police began looking more closely at the circumstances here, and soon this case was reclassified as a murder investigation under local law, Section 302 of the Penal Code. So what made investigators suspicious? Well, for starters, the man last seen with her, Name Wee, was apparently present in the hotel room that day. He was arrested that day for alleged possession and use of drugs. This is after police found ecstasy pills, later tested positive for multiple substances. We're talking amphetamines, methamphetamine, ketamine, THC. He was released on bail after pleading not guilty on October 24th. Namewee has denied using drugs in connection with Iris's death, and in fact, he posted publicly on Instagram saying he, quote, felt deeply sorry about her dying.
October 22nd, 1:40 p.m. Hotel staff find Iris unresponsive in the bathtub. No forced entry, no broken glass, just still water and silence. What happened in those final hours? And who was with her?
About her dying, about her passing, claiming that the truth would come out once the police report was released. Now, meanwhile, police in Kuala Lumpur, they have been conducting a thorough investigation. They have apparently been retracing every movement of both Iris and seemingly Namewee, reviewing CCTV footage, hotel records, statements from hotel staff, security personnel, transport operators, airport staff to figure out exactly what happened in the hours leading up to her death. And the post-mortem and toxicology results, they're still pending. So the exact cause of death hasn't been publicly disclosed as of yet. Malaysian police, they've stated that the investigation is examining every detail of both Iris's and Namewee's movements in the hours leading up to her death. And although Namewee has not been officially named a suspect in this case, according to New Straits Times, police have classified him as a person of interest. So they're determining whether he should be treated as a suspect depending on the evidence that's ultimately collected. It is also worth noting that Iris's death is tied to a broader context of her life and online persona. We're not saying that anything she did online is what resulted in her death, but it can't be taken in a vacuum, right? She was this nurse turned influencer who used platforms like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok to showcase a lot, a mix of modeling and provocative content and controversial stunts. And her content wasn't just
the last man seen with her. Namewee, a rapper known for chaos and controversy. Drugs, ecstasy, ketamine, a list of chemicals, and one lifeless body. Was this a tragic overdose or something much darker?
Stunts, and her content wasn't just bold, it was grabbing attention. The hotel investigation, combined with her public persona, it has made this story widely followed and discussed online. But at its core, the authorities are focused on uncovering the truth about what happened and determining whether foul play was in fact involved. So Namewee remains a person of interest in the murder probe. He hasn't been charged with murder at this point or anything directly connection with her death. All right, so I want to talk about this. Let me bring in Colin L. Schmidt, retired FBI agent, president, CEO of Kronos Litigation Experts. Thank you so much for taking the time. Good to see you. Is it strange when you have an investigation that starts one way, right? You have a death that's initially appears to be potentially, right, accidental, later treated as suspicious, now classified as a murder. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's good police work. I think they looked at it. They didn't take the first hypothesis that was presented to them. They started asking some questions, started digging in a little bit, and then they found out that there's some suspicious activity that was surrounding her in terms of the last person that was with her. So it looks to me like the authorities there are frankly doing their jobs.
If someone's found dead in a bathtub, does that raise any kind of immediate red flags to you?
Well, absolutely, because especially the age comes down. Now, if it was somebody that was 85, 90, and they had comorbidity and several other health issues, yes. But this is a young, healthy TikTok influencer, and there doesn't appear any reason why she would be there in that bathtub and why she would have passed.
And it's different from someone who's found in their own home, right? Even beside, let's say, from an apartment building, if they're found in their own, like a physical location, a home, a residence. Because if you are found in a hotel, that's different, right? Someone who's found dead in a hotel, how does that hotel play into an investigation like that? I mentioned before, looking at the footage, maybe speaking to the staff. What are you looking out for from the hotel personnel?
Well, first thing is somebody it dies in a hotel, and especially if they're young, it's going to be, you're going to start eliminating obvious factors. Is it suicide? Is it a drug overdose? And then the last one is their foul play. So in this case, they're going to go ahead and talk to the hotel staff. They're going to get all of the video. Once again, it's always about the video. We're in a surveillance state, and they're going to piece together a timeline on when she went in there and who she was with, to basically get the context of her death.
Well, first of all, why do you think they're classifying this as a murder investigation right now? There must have been found something that would indicate that. Let's first start there, and then I want to ask you, shouldn't it be relatively straightforward, presuming there's surveillance footage of who was coming in and out of that room? So first, let me ask you, what makes you think, why do you think they're classifying this as a murder investigation?
Detectives call it good police work, a death too suspicious to ignore. Toxicology, CCTV, hotel key logs. Each piece of data whispers the same thing. This was no accident. The body tells the truth, even when people don't.
Well, I believe it's in Malaysia where this is going on. If this was the United States, they wouldn't have done that. They were not going to classify it as anything other than a death until they have absolute certainty, because once you call it something like that, then you're going to create a buzz amongst the media, and then you're going to put the police in a position where they're going to have to start answering questions. But in the case of Malaysia, the Malaysian authorities, obviously they found something that led them to believe that this was a murder, that somebody else took her life, and that's why they're going to follow up on it. And then, of course, exactly what you said, they're going to be able to get that video, and they're going to see who went into that room and who went out. But we are assuming is video that has the entrances covered for that hotel room.
If you're also dealing with somebody who's a notable figure, like if you work at a hotel, whether you're in security or hotel staff, you see people coming and going constantly, but she's a well-known figure, right? She's an influencer. You do wonder if she had more eyeballs on her and people were paying more attention to her.
Well, absolutely. So this is created, obviously, a media buzz. There's a lot of pressure on the authorities. And frankly, it's going to create a groundswell of support where people are going to start calling in and saying, hey, this is what I know. This is who I know. This is who she was with. So I'm confident that they're going to be able to get to the bottom of this because of her platform and who she is. There's going to be a lot of people who want to support this investigation.
You think that matters? If someone's more well-known, that affects an investigation or how quickly answers develop?
Unfortunately, it does. I mean, it's human nature or behavior that, people are drawn to drama, and they also want to help. If they like her or they support her, they want to do whatever they can to help this along and get justice for her family.
The idea of her, you mentioned the platform, her social media presence. I mentioned, how many followers she has. Do investigators look at that? Do they look at her past posts? Do they look at the people following her? I mean, how much do they actually look into that aspect of her life?
Oh, absolutely. It's not necessarily the following, it's the DMs that they're going to be looking at, as well as responses to her videos. If there's some sort of negative response or some response threatening violence towards her, then they'll follow up on the origin of that threat. And then that, of course, goes into the investigation. However, I think in this case, based upon the person that she was last with, it appears that it's very straightforward on the culprit, so to speak, but we don't know until they complete their investigation.
I mean, it's interesting you mention him, right? Name Wei. So they say he's a person of interest, reportedly, not a suspect. What's the difference there? And why not classify him as a suspect at this point?
Well, once you classify him as a suspect, they're going to be forced to arrest him, quite frankly. So if, he's a person of interest, and once again, American law enforcement may not even have done that in terms of naming people. They like to wait until they get all the facts before they put that out because it puts more pressure on them. But as a person of interest, that means he has some involvement. He's either he's a witness or he's a participant witness or he participated in her death. So in this case, I think they're just following up, and they are trying to be strategic about the information they push out. And they may have pushed that out because they want to spark some response from the public so they can come forward and bring them more information.
How does the cause of death affect this, right? The cause of death hasn't been publicly disclosed. I believe the toxicology results, the postmortem results, they're pending. How does that affect us?
That's everything. That's the number one witness in a homicide investigation is the postmortem investigation of the body and the cause of death. Because in a bathtub, she could have been placed in the bathtub. We don't know what was done to her body with stabbings, or if there was needle marks, or if she was strangled or what. And that's basically really going to lead them to the motive based upon how the murder occurred, as well as lead them to the suspect because of the DNA on the body.
And digital evidence is probably very important here. Aside from surveillance footage, we talked about, I was thinking about it, obviously, if you're using social media or you're using your phone in some way, that can give someone an indication about time of death. That can give someone an indication of a timeline, presuming the victim is using their actual phone and not someone else is using their phone. How much is that digital evidence going to be crucial here?
And once again, that's modern law enforcement right now. That's almost like a fingerprint was back in the 50 years ago. Basically, they're going to get her phone, get access to it, and they're going to see the last time she accessed it. And based upon her age, she lives in her phone. So they're going to get a very good timeline of her activity just based upon her own phone use. And then, of course, this other person of interest, they're going to get his digital devices and find out what was going on as well. And maybe even match them up to see if their GPS is reconciled or compare to see how many times they were with each other in the last 24, 48, or 72 hours. Is
it tough to track someone's movements internationally if they're in a busy city like Kuala Lumpur? Whether it's, I personally don't know what the street cameras look like. I don't know if there's difficulty of tracking cell phone data internationally. You tell me.
Well, in this case, they're going to go from the phone first, which is basically the GPS data points are going to be on the phone, and that's the pings off the towers, as well as if she's using internet or satellite. So the GPS on the phone is going to really be able to lock her down, so to speak, as her movement. The second step is Kuala Lumpur is a surveillance society. They do have quite a bit of camera coverage there in the country. And so I'm confident they're going to be able to basically create a visual timeline of her for the last 72 hours. And in that way, they're going to be able to kind of put all the pieces together, and they're going to be able to lock this down. And as far as, like you said, getting the actual data from the phone companies, some countries it's easier, some countries it's harder, but Kuala Lumpur is a very forward, sophisticated economy. So I'm confident the phone companies there have lots of data that they can share with law enforcement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if there were any difficulties in Malaysia with investigations from a law enforcement perspective, a technological perspective, a legal perspective. As far as you know, do you happen to know whether or not there's anything we should be thinking about there?
I would say the only comparison would be basically the suspect's rights. I'm not sure what their rights are as far as when they question a suspect. Obviously, in the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty, and you have a right to an attorney if you invoke that right. But there, that may not be the case, and law enforcement may have more ability to get information from somebody versus in the United States, where we have to abide by a constitution.
I want to go back to the hotel room for a second, since it's the crime scene, and there's probably a lot of answers there. Hopefully there's a lot of answers there. Aside from, we talked about the CCTV footage, hotel key logs, maybe even room service records. Forensically, what are the forensic tests that are done in that bathroom, in that hotel room?
Iris Shi lived in the spotlight and died in the shadows. Her story became headlines, her smile a mystery. And somewhere, behind one hotel door in Kuala Lumpur, the truth still waits to be found. Because in the age of fame, nothing stays hidden forever.
Well, if she was stabbed, or if there's some sort of struggle, they may put luminol down to see if there's any body fluids in the bathroom other than what is on the body, as well as obviously they're going to be swabbing the area for obvious places where there might be DNA transfer. The touch DNA technology has gone way, way forward right now. So now you can get at DNA off of somebody's sweat, basically when they touch a doorknob or interact with a hard surface. So depending on the sophistication of their crime scene people, they're going to be able to get quite a bit of information, so to speak, or evidence from that crime scene where she was found.
And going back to Namewee, as I mentioned earlier, he was initially arrested, possession, drug use. Those charges, those allegations, how does that impact the investigation?
Well, I am aware that in that country, possession of drugs is a very, very serious offense. So he's got a lot of problems just based upon that holding charge, so to speak. But with those charges, that was basically kind of a bootstrap for them because he was apparently a suspect or actually a person of interest to give them the predication to question him on anything because he's in their custody. So those charges were pretty straightforward. Now they have him in custody or had him in custody, and now they have an opportunity to sit down with him and ask him questions and find out what really happened.
So Colin, what are you going to be looking out for next in this? Because obviously there's a lot we don't know. There's some stuff we do know, but there's a lot we don't know. What are you going to be looking out for next?
Well, if they are so forward with naming people or naming this as a murder, they're likely going to release the medical examiner report. Once again, I don't know the level of sophistication, but Kuala Lumpur is a very forward country. So I think that would be the next thing we're going to see is the cause of death, and if there was any drugs involved and what those drugs were.
Colin L. Schmidt, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
Now it's your turn to decide. Was justice truly served, or does the real story still hide behind closed doors? If this mystery gripped you, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold crimes where truth is never